Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Gino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today it is time to go to Final Fantasy again. We have not discussed a Final Fantasy game in a bit. Welcome to Final Four-stasy, where we cover Final Fantasy IV, the fourth Final Fantasy game. And as always, in my Final Fantasy coverage endeavors, I am joined by Chris ZombiePie, Redacted. How you doing, ZP?
Hey, Gino,
Yes,
I don't get you. Like, I don't get what your deal is.
that's fair. I'm unknowable.
Maybe it's because you often panic while making sandwiches. Maybe that's the reason.
I don't think I panic while making you've never seen me make a sandwich.
You're like a Zippo lighter without any flint.
There's flints in Zippo lighter? I don't think that's true. Whatever. We are also joined, as always, by one Jeff Rud. How you doing, Jeff?
Hi. Today it was announced that the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia, by royal appointment, has spoken with Premier David Eby about setting up a new government because it has been determined that they've got enough seats for at least a minority. So, congratulations to our 9'11" tall Minister of the Legislative Assembly of the Province of British Columbia, David Eby. He's gonna be in charge some more. God help us. He is the tallest man I have ever seen in public office. He might be 13 foot tall.
Is he taller than Arnie Duncan of former Obama Department of Education? Man,
That guy was tall.
Yeah.
he was a college
haven't-
basketball player.
And
I
remember when
I haven't thought about him in a long time.
the Clinton administration had that one cabinet member who was notoriously short and small?
No, but I do remember Arnie Duncan in the NBA Celebrity All-Star game because he was in there, which was fun.
Did he light it up?
He played pretty well. Like, he was a college basketball player, so, like, you know, better than Kevin Hart or whatever.
Yeah, what a resume. Anyway,
Um,
Final Fantasy.
Anyway, before we discuss Final Fantasy IV, reminder you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. That's where you can send your email feedback. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. We are 2 patrons away, or 1 new OG Soncast tier patron away from having to play Mass Effect Andromeda. You can do that to us. It's in the power. It's in your power specifically. The Off the Deep End, the slush pile, you can add to that. You get access to our Discord, all sorts of fun stuff. All right, I've done the plug. ZP, are you doing something terrible to yourself?
Today, in honor of the start of the NBA season, we will be partaking in a crossover item. Today, I will be eating Shaq.
Did Shaq consent to this?
No, these are the Shaqalicious extra large gummy snacks. Have you seen these?
I have seen them. I have not purchased them, however.
I
Which
will be
flavor?
eating extra large gummy snacks that are shaped in the size and to look like Shaq's face. I have all 3 flavors here, which I have posted in the Discord. And I've got a neon blue one, which I believe is Berry Punch. I've got a pinkish one that I think is peach, and then an orangish red one, which is supposed to be orange. I am very confused with the colors, but we're gonna eat these. First impression, some of these are like hard, and some of these are like pretty like
Soft,
very
like a gummy
soft,
should be.
so So the ones that are hard, they feel just touching them, feel like they are like the consistency of like a Swedish fish. Whereas
Okay.
the other ones feel like
Mm.
those kind of like what is it? The Lifesavers gummies. These
Okay.
softer ones feel like those. So I'm gonna go ahead and
Okay. Jeff, we
Mhm.
can see the picture of these gummies in the food channel.
Mm.
What do you think of the visage of Shaq's face? How accurate do you think these Shaqses are?
better than the Dwayne Wade statue.
They are
It's,
better than Dwayne Wade's
They
statue.
look
for sure.
remarkably like how he looks in Shaq Fu.
They do.
Is that there's
When's the main
there-
podcast gonna play Shaq Fu?
It's a great question.
Yeah,
And I'm excited you asked it.
That sequel, A Legend Reborn, I think is available on digital platforms.
So
You know,
one day we might play
Eh.
Shaq Fu. Which flavor gummy did you just eat?
I tried the red one,
Okay.
which is obviously the
Fruit punch.
I think that's the that's the fruit punch flavor one.
Is it?
It tastes like regular ass like fruit punch, but jelly form.
Okay, is
Very
it like a
soft.
Swedish fish?
It has that pillowy. No, that did not have the consistency of it. That one definitely had the same texture of like a gummy Lifesavers. Those little rings that you put around your tongue.
Okay.
Let's try this neon blue one.
Okay.
Okay. See that has a texture of a. That has a texture of a Swedish fish. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this
A little bit more gummy.
Okay. I guess this one's berry punch.
Yeah. The last one was, I think, orangey.
Okay.
Yeah, it's leaving the residue on my teeth.
Okay. So this
Oh, you know how some people say they don't like the gummy snacks that stick to your teeth?
yeah.
Yeah,
This
these
is
are
like that.
definitely guilty of that.
Uh,
And it just feels like someone took like some sort of energy drink, like a high C type of flavoring packet, and then mixed it with a gelatin mix.
okay.
Like they taste like very typical gummy snacks. Now I'm going to eat the neon pink one, which I'm pretty sure is peach.
Yeah. Jeff, what
Mhm.
is your top tier
sir.
gummy snack? What is your favorite?
Li Hing Mui covered anything. Like take Li
Ah.
Hing powder, put it on like Coca-Cola bottles. Now we're getting somewhere. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Li Hing powder on a gummy. Yeah. I also like the other kind of gummies. The issue is they don't sell enough of them up here.
I see.
In my former jurisdiction, you could buy packets of gummies, let's say, in like 20 a unit. And up here, they sell them for about the same cost per good time, but
Okay.
only in units of like 3 to 5.
Mm.
It's
I
weird.
like me a Sour Patch Kids. I ain't no elitist.
I was gonna say Sour Patch Kid.
Haribo makes quality products. Haribo's sour spaghetti, even though we've got someone here who's a spaghetti elitist, probably going to say it's fake spaghetti.
It is fake spaghetti.
Also,
Sour
Nerds
is
Rope.
good.
Nerds Rope is good.
That's true, but that's because it's covered in nerds.
This is mid. This is absolutely mid. It is a very faint, fruit snacky thing, and just absolutely creepy that it's just Shaq staring at you as you bite into his face.
So
Upsetting. This food upsetted me. It doesn't taste great. It tastes very mid. I'm gonna go with a soft 2.5
okay.
out of 5.
Shaqalicious gummies, a soft 2.5. But if you want Shaq to stare at you as you eat him, this is for you, I guess. Also, Shaquille O'Neal will put his name on literally anything. So good for him.
Yeah, he's still doing commercials with the General.
Yeah. What ZP? Have you had a Shaq-a-roni pizza?
I
Pizza
have
Hut?
seen these. I have not actually eaten them.
Okay, so I can't ask you which is better, Shaqalicious gummies or Shaq-a-roni pizza. Okay, well, maybe for next time we'll find out how good the Shaq-a-roni pizza is. All right, Final Fantasy IV, the fourth Final Fantasy. Jeff, you like this game?
No,
No?
No.
I have a thing.
Oh, okay. Oh, God.
Uh-huh.
I have a thing.
Okay.
I have a thing.
Do your thing.
I moved to a new jurisdiction. My thing's going to be shorter than ZP's. I want to introduce the world to various yummy treats that can only be found in America's hat.
Pawpaws.
So, something you can find in America on occasion are these wonderful little coffee crisp bars. I think
What?
they're all right. ZP, are you familiar with a coffee crisp?
No, not at all.
It's a crunchy, sort of thick wafer candy bar profile guy. I think this is a Nestle product. I like them plain. I have a seasonal offering here, though, for your consideration today. This is the pumpkin spice latte coffee crisp, or I should note the alternate, the latte à la citrouelle épicée. So I'm now going to eat a pumpkin spice latte coffee crisp. Here we go.
How brave.
That's actually not that bad. It's got the same sickly, like, way too sweet pumpkin spice latte thing that you would expect.
Yeah.
But it's
I don't
kind of
know.
just a spiced. Think of it like a spiced Kit Kat with a
Uh,
little bit of coffee.
I've never been a huge fan of the pumpkin spice. Not necessarily because I don't like pumpkin flavor. I love me a good pumpkin pie. I just don't like artificial pumpkin flavor with like weird autumny like spices. I really
I'm a
don't
huge
like.
fan of the spices, personally.
I'm
Pumpkin-
I'm not a huge fan of artificially flavored coffees for the exact reason where you can just taste the chemicals.
Yeah.
Like
Well, you
fake
might not
French
like it.
vanilla is atrocious. I cannot stand fake vanilla.
I hate the flavor. I hate French, like fake French.
You hate the French.
Awful.
Okay, yeah, got it.
Yeah, there you go.
absolutely.
Fake
we
French.
we articulated
I
that.
hate the fake French, says.
Yeah, I look forward to being dragged out of this country by my ear.
Oh right, you're in Canada land. You got to be careful how you talk about the French.
Yeah.
Bloc
Quebec,
Québécois.
J-Tam.
You-
All right, here we go.
Sacre
Anyway,
bleu.
Final Fantasy IV.
Oh, that was
I'm
it?
gonna finish
Okay,
this bar.
good. Final Fantasy IV. Well, you're finishing the bar. ZP, what is this game?
It's the fourth Final Fantasy game, or the second if you live outside of Japan and are in North America. However, for those of you that will insist on calling this Final Fantasy II, I've got my middle finger. Can you feel it? Can you feel me giving you my middle finger? You're in the same camp as people who say we can't call her Aerith. Fuck off! Anyways, Final Fantasy IV is the fourth game in the Final Fantasy franchise. It is led by Hironobu
The
Sakaguchi.
Gooch!
It is produced by Misafune Miyamoto and then designed by Takashi Tokita. Many of these names will factor into the history of Square Enix, for example. Though not always, Masafune Miyamoto kind of had a very short career making games, but then played a huge role in just running the business. So he moved away from duties there. He actually had a pretty instrumental role in making sure that the Square Enix merger closed. Takashi Tokita, another one of those names that maybe comes up when we're talking about like legends of Squaresoft Square Enix, because he is the creative director of Live a Live, Parasite Eve, and Chrono Trigger. So pretty stacked team, but that's kind of like the weird thing about this game is that we see a lot of those names that are considered the legends, the old guard of Final Fantasy, but they weren't really actually legends at the time. This is the first game that used the active time battle system, which was used in 5 games after this, because it's in 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, though modified slightly in some of those PS1 games. As we have reviewed in our mini series about which version of Final Fantasy IV you should play podcast, this game has been ported and remastered and done all sorts of different ways to keep it relevant. And retrospectively, this is oftentimes regarded as one of the greatest games of all time, if not one of like a top 4 or 5 Final Fantasy game. For many people, especially in the West, this is their first exposure to Final Fantasy with a story, named characters, and some sort of progression of a narrative, because the first game that, outside of Japan in particular, was exposed to was Final Fantasy 1. As we've reviewed before, 2, 3 didn't really get out there. You have unchangeable character classes rather than the malleable class system seen in 3. Those characters swap in and out of your party. You can control as few characters as 1 and as many as 5. It has the overworld that now feels almost as if it's been perfected. You have world transformations, which again were earlier explored in Final Fantasy III, but now it feels like this is the culmination of some of those ideas in their biggest form. We have an in-depth side quest system, though it's still getting there. And it's an equipment-based RPG as well, with, these character classes now being given to you with you not able to kind of change them. So your ability to make your characters more potent relies more on the improvement of their core stats, as well as providing them the opportunity to upgrade their equipment.
So that's
the
this is kind of this is when the Final Fantasy series figured out how to do story forward and have the characters be kind of iconic in relation to their role in the story, right? So like you've got Cecil, who starts out as a Dark Knight, and spoilers, he might become a Paladin at some point. And so his abilities change. You've got your monk, who has the discrete monk abilities, Yang. You've got your Black Mage, you've got your White Mage. And these characters' classes are very specific to their personalities. They kind of embody these archetypes. This is kind of the way that Final Fantasy IV went with this sort of design. 6 does this as well. 9 does this. And then it kind of gets away from the free-for-all kind of open character building that you get from Final Fantasies 2, 3, 5, 7, and 8 from the early games. And then it kind of spins out a little bit more once you get to 10 and beyond. But this is kind of the game that sets the FF series apart in terms of storytelling. Like 1 had a little bit of story. 2 actually has a surprising amount of story considering how old it is. 3, not very much. 4, it's trying to tell a compelling narrative. So you start out with Cecil.
This is also a kind of inflection point for the series in a couple of points. We've talked about how this is the game that introduced the active time battle. And Jeff, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure this is when Final Fantasy fully discarded the Vancian magic system in favor of a pool of mana points, correct?
I mean, did 3 have a Vancian system? I don't
thought
remember.
it did.
I thought it had.
No, remember you had your White Mage and you had to worry about spending mini?
Yes.
And then not having enough uses of White magic. So yeah, 3 still had the Vancian magic system. You still travel between areas which occurs on the overworld, and you can still heal at inns. Random encounter intervals on the overworld and in dungeons, and in the battle you still have the option to fight, use magic items, retreat, or change even the positions. I guess it was taken aback. I kind of forgot that this game had parry as a move option for some of these classes. But there are also special abilities, which we'll get into. But yes, Cecil, this guy. But wait, you're pronouncing it wrong, Gino.
Cecil.
You're pronouncing it wrong, Gino. Cecil. So, quick clarification. Which versions of the game are we playing? I know we said this in the last podcast, but it's been a while.
I am playing the DS version.
Jeff?
I am playing the North American SNES release with I believe it is called the Naming Way fan patch, which updates the script. Primarily, that's what it does.
Where is my Japanese NES cart? Yeah, it's I got my Japanese cart right here. I don't actually think this is easy type, Jeff, so I might show you a picture of the cart. I also played the Pixel Remaster, and I am doing something where I'm playing it. Whenever I play 1 hour of OG Final Fantasy IV, I try to see how long does it take me to get to that point in the game in the remake, and my findings are not exactly shocking for people who have played both, i.e., the 3D remake is definitely slower. But yeah, what were you gonna say in terms of Gino and how this game starts? Because I think that this intro is pretty good.
Yeah, Cecil starts on you're on an airship. Cecil and his friend Kane, the Dragoon, are assigned with going and killing a mist dragon in this town of summoners. You go down there, you kill the mist dragon. It turns out that it was the mom of a little girl named... It's with an R. What's her... Rydia.
Rydia.
Rydia's mom.
Uh,
and then you burn her town to the ground because...
So Time to War Crime is up there with Breath of Fire 3.
Yeah, it's instantaneous. It's just hello war crime.
You're forgetting the part where Cecil is the captain of the Red Wings. He questions the king's motives, and he is actually stripped of his rank and has to tag along with Kane and his friends because he's been...
He gets his rank stripped, and that's why he has to go do a war crime.
Yeah. But yeah, you basically murder Rydia's entire community. She summons a giant monster named Titan in anger. This monster separates Cecil and Kane. And when Cecil wakes up, he basically saves Rydia's life, drags her to a nearby inn. And so the start of this game is this weird relationship between Cecil and Rydia, this person that he has literally just tried to massacre, like, with wanton cruelty.
Well, was manipulated into doing that.
He's a soldier that doesn't necessarily question the motivations of his king.
Yes,
certainly.
He takes orders.
And there's a certain element here that feels very apt and timeless in terms of when do you start to question your motives and your orders as a soldier? Where is there your place? And again, some people have raised the question: should this game from this creator from this point of origin really be doing this? I think it's good for what it does.
Yeah, it's a good ethical question that in a legal sense got solved in the 40s when people were being tried for war crimes during the Holocaust. They determined in a legal sense that just following orders wasn't an adequate defense. You in fact did the things you did. However, it's a fun, immediate, like, okay, well, what do you do when you realize you've done wrong? I don't know. I've been doing a lot of I've been in school for a while. I'm not going to turn into Pete because I ain't that smart or big brained, but thinking about again, Sakaguchi as someone whose mom died in a literal fire, B, someone who grew up in Japan, which has its own kind of unique framing of, like, how World War II went, and C, just thinking about Earth and how people go about their lives out here. It's a fun little device, right? I think it sets up some interesting character development for really the first good character in the history of the franchise.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean that because prior to this, no one's a character. Like,
right.
You can't really make the case that Princess Sarah constituted a character. Final Fantasy II had, 4 named protagonists and an evil
one
emperor.
Of which gets run over by a fucking boulder.
Joseph is everyone's favorite.
And one of whom can speak squirrel.
Yeah, I guess you could. That's a good point. Like Cecil is like the first truly great character in this series.
Yeah, he is realized. He has an amount of interiority
He has a
to him
girlfriend.
that is kind of admirable.
He has a girlfriend that he cares about.
He
He has a
has a
friend that he
girlfriend.
cares
Yeah.
about who betrays him, and he changes, he
Who
grows.
constantly betrays him, and then is also a part of this like really weirdly sophomoric love triangle. But
He's
anyways,
got, protector
the-
relationships with Rydia and with Palom and Porum. Like he
yeah,
does stuff.
I actually I do like the internal and external conflict that Cecil and Radia have at the very start of the game. I think it's like truly good. And especially when like the Baron's soldiers come over and then Radia's like, "Oh yeah, you're probably going to just stab me in the back and throw me away. I guess I'll fight myself." And then you actually stand by her and she's like, "Okay, maybe you're cool. I still don't like you or trust you cuz you literally killed my family."
Mm-hmm.
And then after Radia joins Cecil, then we have is this our first time when like the game jump cuts to a different character and then we follow that character? Because we go to Rosa, right? And then
Do we jump cut? You go to the underground waterway. There's the dungeon with Rydia where you have to fight an octopus monster.
Right.
Then you go to the Antelian's den, and that's another dungeon that we're not really talking about it, but you have to grind in this game. It's a turn-based battle system.
Yeah, I mean,
the levels.
It of the era, this is that yes, like of the era, absolutely earned and warranted. Like,
It's a
technologically and ambitiously, Jeff, when do you think that Final Fantasy started to get a one-up on Dragon Quest? Because as much as I like Final Fantasy IV, this is not the game where Final Fantasy started to turn the corner on Dragon Quest. Because Dragon Quest had like the caravan system and like a bigger world and scope.
I mean,
some would even say that like Dragon Quest VII like was outdoing Final Fantasy, but those people are fucking weird.
It's an apples to oranges comparison. Like I think at a certain point the Dragon Quest series like really stopped caring about technology. I think Dragon Quest VII's kind of the perfect example. Like came out very late, is basically 2D, looks rudimentary, and no one cared because it was massive. Like they're playing a different game, I think fundamentally. But yeah, like I don't know, technologically, this game predates, Dragon Quest V on the SNES, but post-dates, I believe, Dragon Quest IV on the NES, at least in Japan. And I mean, like, the difference between those games is mostly like, telling a small story well versus telling a very large, expansive story well. Like, I think they just kind of have different goals. So I don't know if I'd make the comparison. They're just kind of different games that share, again, here's a simplified way to play wizardry, but with some anime trappings as their kind of DNA.
Yeah, and I guess with this environment, this is when we really start to get like the levels feel like vignettes more than they feel like this wholly connected world.
Yeah.
I don't know if you all ever felt like a need or a desire to go backwards, but there's almost a linearity to Final Fantasy IV, which I honestly didn't mind because it meant that playing this game is incredibly easy. Like the last retro Final Fantasy game we played was 3. This game is so much easier than 3. It's so much easier than 2.
Yeah, like
you're always able to move forward.
I kind of wish I was not playing the North American release of this game. It's just piss easy. Like the only reason I've taken as long as I have, in addition to like, school is like, there's a lot more work than I was expecting. I wasn't expecting to have 5 classes, but here we are. It's also, I kind of wanted to grind up to get like whatever the high level white mage spell is that's good. I think it was Reflect or Shell or something. Because if I hadn't kind of had that be contingent to unlock some later game summons, I think I could have gate crashed this whole game in about 20 hours because I got up to the sort of like mop up phase of this game inside of 16 hours.
Yeah.
And that with like basically zero grind.
So
It's shocking how easy they made this game when they brought it over here.
Right. So just to review, I guess the magic system in this game is kind of like an interesting mechanic. So certain jobs are hard locked into these different schools of magic. There's white magic, black magic, summon magic, ninjutsu magic, and then twin magic. Your white magic users are Radia, Rosa, Porum, Tellah,
Maybe Cecil.
Fusoya, and Cecil when he turns into a paladin. You start with basic cure, or cure 1, then Cura, Curaga, Kuraja, Raise, your usual stuff. But you also get like field spells versus like healing spells. So like Float is considered a field or an AoE buff. And you also get those support spells. Just genuinely kind of like interesting systems. There's a sense of progression with these. The cost of certain abilities. Black magic is also going to be Radia because she's a summoner. Palom again, Tellah, and Fusoya. And then summon magic is just Radia, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, she's the summoner.
Yeah. Okay. And then that's a whole different mechanic. Edge gets his own school of magic, which is ninja magic.
But it's worth saying, like, all these different schools, the characters just get spells by leveling up. There's no other way to access abilities, at least until you get to the DS version, which introduced the ability to give abilities. Like, you can get single uses of an ability to equip to another character. So like you can cross class a little bit.
And then with your version of the game, Gino, you also have the augment system, which is a DS
Yeah, that's what I mean. The augment system
or a remake
is where
exclusive.
you can put an augment on a character.
Yeah, so that doesn't exist in Jeff's game or me. Yeah, that system doesn't exist in any other version of the game.
That's the only one where you get some customization and it's not just these characters are on rails. But you know, it works.
Yeah.
It totally works. Your characters get better. You're leveling up. You're unlocking new abilities. Each character has a distinct identity. They have different equipment they can equip. So my problem was not the difficulty. I forgot that I had to grind for a little bit. Then once I grinded up to a acceptable level, the game wasn't too bad. My difficulty with the DS version is it's just slow as hell. Like the animations are slow. The load times are slow. Everything's slow.
To a degree, I agree. The nice thing with the Pixel Remaster is that you can just run, and it has those quality of life features. So there's a special addendum to the DS version, which is pretty important. This applies to a lot of those 3D remakes because they were originally intended for the DS and even like phones. They can display fewer enemies. So to compensate, the enemies have larger pools of health and then also get 2 turns instead of 1.
It's annoying.
So they hit more times, they take longer to go down, and they've also rebalanced the leveling of the characters to where it feels more gradual and less exponential, which makes the 3D version genuinely harder and slower. It isn't
like a D&D ism. I think even a lot of the handbooks mention this. And if they don't, they really should. It feels better to smash 3 small things than 1 big thing. Like always. Like when you're setting up encounter design in a tabletop game, it almost always better to give your characters like 15 ants or goblins or whatever it is to fight than like 2 big things. Usually, like you can knock stuff around more. It's just inherently less satisfying. So take that and then graft it to that DS game, which I find also just moves kind of slower. And then it just combat's ultimately less satisfying because you don't get the sensation of like, I just knocked out 4 of these goblins. There's only 2 left. I'm making progress. It's just the same picture of a goblin, but it has a bigger number. Like, I don't know. I think it just sort of surfaces the artifice more in a way that kind of sucks.
Yeah, it does. And
Yeah,
I
not-
also
not a
don't
fan.
like that the spongier enemies also hit harder too. Like you sometimes just get one shot in the DS version because an enemy just happened to hit the right move at the right time, and it's a bummer. So you go to the Antelian's Den. You get Edward, who is a spoony bard. He joins you. He's got a harp.
There he is.
You also get
Yeah, they don't say the line anymore in the Pixel remaster. They changed the spoon.
I forgot.
Part.
I learned that word has some different connotations in certain neuro atypical communities.
Really?
Yeah. My wife was like, "Why is this here?" And I was like, "Oh, it's like it's a translation thing. It's from the '90s. There's this guy." And she's like, "Oh, like some people use that word to talk about like."
Actually, no, I take it back. It seems like they patched it back, and they still say use spoony bard. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Like the concept of having spoons to do a thing.
Oh,
like if someone's
I know what you're
feeling
talking
spoony.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was just like, "What do they mean, spoony bard?"
So no, yeah, it seems like the Pixel remaster does like I yes, but yeah,
you get
bards,
him,
Bards. Edward, a
You get
useless
Tellah.
character.
a goddamn
There's Tellah.
Edward.
Perhaps
sucks
you have
so much
forgot.
shit.
He's a sage. I like Tellah because he's an old guy, so when he levels up, his strength goes down and his speed goes down, but his HP and his MP go up. So you can see him getting slower and weaker as he gets older. That's a fun little bit of character design through leveling and progression. Edward is in love with Tellah's daughter, and Tellah does not approve. And then Tellah's daughter gets killed, and he wants to take revenge on Golbez, who is tasking you with stealing a bunch of crystals. That is his. That is the antagonist of this game.
So he's a sage who can use most black and white magic. He starts with a good amount of power. However, yeah, like you said, due to his age, things are decreasing, and he gains no MP as he levels up, which is a cool idea.
Can we talk about? There's a fun kind of hidden mechanic at play throughout this game too, where if you've kind of picked up, characters sort of come and go.
Yeah.
Throughout, this happens kind of from the beginning to the end of the game, and it's neat and cool, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. Characters, if they've disappeared for a while and they're coming back in, or if they're introducing themselves late in the game, the level that they come into your party with is not arbitrary. It is a function basically of the level or levels of characters existing in your party, which if you, let's say, are playing on, the North American version from the Super Nintendo, and you're just kind of rolling stuff, characters are going to be coming into your party relatively low level. This is not a problem until you realize that spells unlock at often quite high levels. So if you were looking, again, to have Reflect in your pocket, it almost behooves you to kind of grind at points before you get some characters put back in.
Well, on top of that, it's very unusual. Tellah is one of the weirdest characters in the entire game. 2 reasons. Yeah. First off, our version of Tellah, Gino, is actually worse than your version because in the 2D versions, Tellah's intellect and spirit scores don't start increasing until after he goes past level 40. 2, the recall ability for Tellah was made unavailable in the original North American SNES release, which was named Final Fantasy II. So he had an entire moveset and ability list, which was initially unavailable to him. So you could add that recall list, which is kind of percentage based, which could cause things like, basically was the earliest form of roulette, where you could either do a basic fire spell, the highest odd was failure, or you could just do insta-death.
Yeah, he's a really cool character.
But yeah, I'll note this fan patch I'm playing put that back in.
Yeah,
and
they
it's neat.
later put it in.
Yeah.
I just want to kind of like quickly review ways, Gino, that these characters were fundamentally different in your version versus the version that
Do it quick because
Jeff
we
and I
covered this
played.
with the different
So,
versions.
Cecil, for example. Like, no, we're not. We're talking
Okay.
about like the moves that you
Okay.
have that we don't have. So in the 3D version, Cecil, his spirit, your version, his spirit will never increase as a Dark Knight. You have to wait until he's a Paladin. For our version, he actually does build spirit up per level up. In the original North American SNES release, his dark ability did not exist. It was censored out because it was maybe possibly considered satanic. The Paladin was basically kept the same for Kane. I noted no changes. Radia. In the 3D versions of the game, Radia will join the party at level 30. If her level as a child was lower, in the 3D version, she will rejoin at the level she was left at.
Ah.
Ouch,
So that-
kabibble.
Yeah, that sucks. So if you don't level her to level 30, try to do that, Gino, because you will get screwed with the time skip.
I think I already have been.
Spoilers. Okay. Edward. You get Skyrocket before we do, but that's it. Rosa. Yeah, Rosa. Okay. So the Prey ability. So Prey is intended to heal all party members' HP with power equal to cure for no cost, but it doesn't always work. In the 3D version, Prey has a higher success rate. In the original North American SNES release, due to cultural concerns, it was completely removed.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's patched back into the version I'm playing.
It was
But-
actually re-added in Easy Type.
The fail rate on that thing is
Sucks.
higher than I want.
All right, Yang. Yang's seen a lot of changes because in his original version, Kick absolutely sucks shit. There was a bug concerning Yang's HP growth in the original SNES and the original Japanese North American GBA versions, where his HP stops increasing at level 60. Ouchie.
I mean, that's pretty high. You're not playing this game until you get him.
Gerd was made unavailable in the original North American SNES release. Balance changes to his power ability. Originally made unavailable in the original North American SNES release. So basically, we were saying, Jeff, don't play the original SNES release.
Good.
Palom, the bluff ability was completely made unavailable in the original
What does bluff
SNES
do?
released. So bluff increases intelligence until the end of the next turn.
Yeah. Temporary stat boost.
Temporary stat boost for his intelligence-based moves.
Circumstantial at best.
Yeah, and then also they rightfully took out Cry for Porum, but Cry is absolutely jack shit. And then Sid. In the 3D versions of Sid, he also has another ability, which is Upgrade, which lets Sid apply an attack item such as a Red Fang to his weapon, granting it the element property of the item. That sounds pretty cool. Can't do it. No changes, and Fusoya is just a giant weird thing where they've been going backtracking there. I mean, most of his movesets in the original release of Fusoya, he was just completely shitty. Okay, sorry. But yeah, you are playing once again, surprise, surprise, Gino is playing a fundamentally different game.
No, I
Which is
mean,
not to
the
say he's
story is the
playing a bad
same.
game.
There's
It's
just
just
slightly
it's different.
different versions of the characters and their abilities.
No, I would push back. I would push back completely there. You're getting cutscenes and character moments that don't exist anywhere else. You're getting full voice acting. You're getting like extra character moments that don't exist anywhere else.
So we get now to meeting Yang. We go to the land of the monks. You have to save it from Mom Bomb. It's under attack. I mean, Fabul Castle, it's another crystal that's getting jacked. Then you get to go back to Mysidia, the town that you laid waste to. I think that's one of the better moments in this whole game. All of the people in Mysidia, they're all mages. They remember who Cecil is, and they will curse you if you talk to them. Like, they will turn you to a frog. They will cast Mini on you. They will poison you if you try to buy from certain stores. They all hate you because you did a war crime to them. And so they task you with going out to a mountain, Mount Ordeals, to become a paladin, to prove that you are no longer a Dark Knight. You are no longer a bad person. Jeff, did you play this game as a kid? Okay.
I played it in high school.
Did
on the Game Boy Advance.
paladin moment do anything for you? Like, did you think that was exceptional storytelling?
You know, like, I don't know if I quite appreciated the thing at the time. At this point, I can kind of, you know, you get some Joseph Campbell sort of power of myth stuff here. Like, this is a person who is choosing to change themselves and improve themselves based on feedback they've gotten. You know, again, I'm in school right now. I have weird ways of framing this, but like, been talking a lot about like the meaning of like trying to do a truth and reconciliation process. Because there's ownership of like what you did, and then there's the follow through component, and then there's that continuing relationship basically afterwards that hopefully you keep. And modeling that behavior, whether or not they intended to, through this character being like, okay, like you're right, I screwed up, I'm going to do better, here's how I'm going to do better. And then the rest of the story is sort of jumps off from there, is actually really clever and cool. And I'm not going to sit here and suggest that this is again rises to the level of like the power of myth or whatever the hell. It's a Super Nintendo game, but it's surprisingly sophisticated on that level for what it is.
That's my feeling.
I think it kind of trumps it trumps some of what Dragon Quest is doing, honestly.
Sure.
Like those are a lot more shonen feeling stories, and this has absolutely got that too. But it's just that extra little pinch. It's like, and you know, I'd like to. It would be nice and neat to attribute all of that to Sakaguchi, like being on his oats for like a decade. So maybe you could put it there. But team sport and the team.
I really like Mount Ordeals.
I also think that, I think that whole scene where he transforms into a paladin is actually even better in the DS remake, where it has full voice acting. Like, a lot has been said about Yuri Lowenthal's performance in the PlayStation Portable and DS version of the game, but I think that voice acting in that cutscene is actually genuinely more powerful with the additional voice acting and the extra kind of cinematic flaring that they do to kind of like frame things a little bit better and provide them with more quiet time and then like emotional resonance.
Yeah, and we also get Palom and Porum. They join you on the Mount Ordeals, so you get introduced to the titular, the foundational black mage, white mage little kids.
You got some good characters in this game, and then you've got absolute like front runners for Anime Shitboy of the Year award. Like, Edward is probably the absolute worst character just in terms of like his whole deal and what like combat or efficacious utility he provides, but Palom and Porum are equally annoying because you just got these like kids just constantly whining and you just want to give them a wedgie or something. Like, oh god.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing I can say is like, I don't know if it's the best thing I can say. It is interesting how they model this team of such disparate, like, you have a very aged man, Tellah. You have middle-aged identity crisis man. You have a pair of literal, like, 12-year-old kids or however old they're supposed to be. Like, the range of different human beings trying to get through situations collaboratively is kind of neat, I guess. They don't really do anything with this idea, but yeah, they're it again, the shonen part. It's having this.
I really like it when they are in the same party and then they pop off that goddamn comet spell when you least expect it. So you can't really rely on it, but boy howdy, when it pops off, it's pretty cool. Kind of, sort of, I think. Maybe.
Yeah, like I think the most interesting those characters do is stop being in your
Yeah,
party.
and that's kind of where we're going. So
Yeah.
you fight
Ugh.
Scarmiglione, one of the four fiends. You defeat them. You come back and you're a paladin. So you're cool with everyone in Mysidia, which allows you then to go back to Baron, which is the town where Cecil is from. You fight your way towards the king. Turns out the king wasn't the king. Turns out the king was Baigen, who was an evil monster. You beat him up, and then you fight Cagnazzo. Oh, I think Baigan is a different. You fight Baigan. He's, I think, the captain of the guard, and Cagnazzo is the king, who's the second of the four fiends.
Yes.
As you're trying to escape from Baron, the walls start closing in on you at one point as you're trying to escape with Cid, Palamporum, Cecil, and Yang. And so Palom and Porum petrify themselves to hold the wall in place so that you do not get crushed to death, which is the first of many sacrificial deaths that will happen in Final Fantasy IV. Did that do anything for you?
And they use the in-game lore. I mean, I think it's really cool that they use they're like, oh, it's okay, we'll just use a gold needle on them. Yeah. Yeah, and the game's just like, it doesn't work. They chose to do it. It's like, oh, it's like playing with the the guts of being a video game a little bit in a way that's kind of cute.
I really enjoy that.
I also we kind of haven't talked about it, but having 5 characters is kind of baller, man. Like I forgot that this game had 5 characters in your party at a maximum. And having that extra move with an extra set of unique abilities kind of freaking rocks. Like, I miss having 5 characters. Like, just... It does... If you are afflicted with analysis paralysis, which I'm definitely at times afflicted with, it does slow things down. But, man, having that additional, extra set of moves just makes the combat a bit more satisfying and just, enough variety. So your parties, even though you have very little agency over who is in your literal party, because you have that extra slot usually filled, you usually have all of your bases covered. And the game is pretty smart about making sure that you have all of your bases covered.
Yeah, you're usually not rolling with a party that's incapable, which is nice. From this point, you get an airship, because Cid's in your party. The world opens up. You can fly around to a few different places. But you need to go to Troya, which is going to ask you to defeat a dark elf, so that you can... I think that's where you get the Earth Crystal. Yeah. But you see, the dark elf is in a magnetic cavern because he is weak to metal weaponry. So you have to equip everyone with crappy weapons and armor that is not metal, or else you're paralyzed and can't move, which is kind of an annoying mechanic. This in the DS version was really annoying because my party was dealing crap for damage.
No, it's annoying in the SNES version too.
No, it's annoying in all versions of the game. I'll say that. Yeah, this is not a. It's a look. These games operate as Jeff. You can back me up. These games operate on the idea of. The midpoint of the games are supposed to offer what is known as a gear check, which is you must be this tall or this high to get past this point. And that's definitely what Troya feels like. It feels like a definite jump in difficulty compared to everything that we've dealt with prior to that. And the ways in which it adds and ratchets up even more difficulty feels a bit arbitrary because, like you said, you have to take your metallic equipment with you, and if you don't, you're completely inert, and so that requires some like fiddling, right? Like some real fiddle, which inevitably re-ops you into grinding, which I guess is this game's very explicit way of saying, yeah, you're just going to have to do that because we want to make sure that you are at least close to meeting the threshold to complete this next dungeon, which the Lodestone
isn't.
Cavern ain't no joke.
I mean,
ain't no joke.
It, except the issue was it kind of was. Like
Well, for your version, I guess.
taking, assuming that you've did a little bit of like, okay, well, here's the best non-Metal Gear in the game. I at that point had so much money that I was just able to swap everyone over. I'll tell you what the main issue with this version is. Actually, I haven't brought this up, but this SNES version of this game came out in the before times, by which I mean the inventory is finite. The issue I am running into constantly is I don't have enough inventory space to even pick up most things. So I have used extensively the Fat Chocobo feature in this game just to hold on to shit. Or I'm selling off stuff rapidly and burning through potions rapidly and getting rid of like any non-essential gear. So the hardest part of the gear check part of this was actually just shifting all of my shit between being worn by characters to in my inventory to being sold or going to the Fat Chocobo, but not sold because it's good enough material. I just want it back after I don't need to have it swapped off anymore. That was the biggest. But the dungeon itself was kind of trivial. Like everything else, again, up to about hour 16, which was literally beating the last of the 4 fiends. Like it's just kind of, if you weren't familiar with how JRPGs worked, I imagine some of this would have been a little bit of a workout, but it is honestly a cakewalk. So like, yeah, in theory, it's a gear check. Practically speaking, it's a, do you understand how to manage an inventory given this finite rule set? If you can manage that, you can get past it. But it did. This was the biggest pain point, just getting all that gear off and on again.
Yeah, and it does. It also
sucked.
It also
bit
sucks
better
when
in
you
the Pixel
run to and
Remastered.
from this place to heal and like grind and everything because you're equipped with garbage weapons, and then you have to run into this like the dungeon knows you're supposed to be equipped with this crappy weaponry and is designed as such. Walking over to the dungeon on the world map, sometimes it is less so. So you are just like running around with this less efficacious party, or you're doing just like constant gear swaps, which sucks. I just embraced the suck and just knew that my party would be a little bit underlevel or underpowered. But yeah, Jeff, it sounds like you went through the painful process of re-equipping and de-equipping over and over again.
Yep.
So you get the Earth Crystal.
Wouldn't recommend
At this point, you can pay a ransom because Rosa's been kidnapped and held hostage by Golbez and Cain. You get the crystal. They tell you, meet us at the Tower of Zot. Give us the crystal. We'll give you Rosa back. You go to the Tower of Zot. You fight the iconic Magus sisters, who are very cool. I like that battle a lot.
Yeah, it's a cool battle. Overall, like, definitely more fantastical boss design. I remember, what was it? The Mom Bomb, which is like a big booby fire demon thing. This game feels very evocative of traditional Japanese folklore, despite the fact that visually it's meant to look like a storybook European medieval town. The story structure feels like Japanese parables. The weird twists and turns are also very much that. And then, like Jeff said, this is definitely a story that is derivative of Joseph Campbell's heroic cycle, Hero of a Thousand Faces in particular.
Yeah, I agree. You fight through the Magus sisters. You get to Barbarisha, who's the third of the four fiends that you're going to fight. Beat her up, and then you end up with a scene. You try to give the crystal to Kane. He double crosses you. They're going to take Rosa away, and now you have a battle against Golbez, where this is where, right? Golbez fight. We have the Golbez
Wait,
fight.
where
That's
what?
This is where what?
Tellah and
Oh, yeah.
Golbez.
Yes.
They go head to head, and Tellah casts Meteor,
The-
and it
This is where Tellah gets
kills
unalive.
himself to try to injure Golbez.
I think this scene is.
It is.
I think this scene is great, though.
Hell yeah.
I agree.
No.
Is someone saying otherwise?
Yeah, no. This is an incredible scene. I know that when I first played this game many moons ago, I remember as a kid, not as a kid, similar to Jeff, I probably played this high school. Actually, no, I played this middle school on the GBA.
Same here.
Which is maybe dating me. And I remember Golbez feeling very quaint, and I remember thinking that Golbez was a badass. Like, look at this guy in his black armor suit, and man, how cool is it that we just follow one antagonist and he's just a badass for the entire game? Obviously, this game will have the same Final Fantasy plot twist, but there's something about seeing Tellah do this, like, Dragon Ball Z super move to try and do just a dent of damage on Golbez. And it's just enough. Like, just an effective scene in terms of, like, getting a lot out of very little.
Yeah. I like this scene a lot. I like that this is also one of the deaths in this game that they don't take back, which I think makes it more impactful. And you see that it's coming. Like,
Yeah.
Tellah's getting weaker as he's leveling up. Clearly, he's not a character that's long for this world. He talks about, how he's going to die, and his daughter's already dead, and he wants to be back with his daughter. But the scene where he actually dies, I think, is one of the better in-game battle moments. I think comparable to Galoof doing the same thing in Final Fantasy V. They use this again in the subsequent game, but this is the original, and it's very good. And then you go to the Underworld. There's an entirely new map because this is a Super Nintendo game, so we get one of those, second map moments that we get in 5 and 6 as well. So we're going to stop here because this is about halfway through the game. Any closing thoughts on Final Fantasy IV Part 1?
Well, once again, I think that you were better off. I think we can't say this enough. If you're listening and thinking about playing along with us, do yourself a favor. Just play the Pixel Remaster of this game. Just play the Pixel Remaster. I know we've said it before, but that's really the version to play. You don't need to be a hero and play some sort of older version of this. Even if you are a veteran of Final Fantasy IV, there are certain parts to that 3D remake that might be worth your passing memory of just playing it once, but just play the Pixel Remaster.
Jeff, any closing thoughts on
It's just
Part 1?
so much better off for it.
Just a slow nod. A, yes, Pixel Remaster. B, yeah, it's kind of, again, small but impressive. The lift that is being done here in terms of, like, it's an actual character going through an actual arc, in a genre where they at best accidentally pull that off a lot of the time. Like, I don't think this is necessarily high literature, but and honestly, there are things about 3 and 1 I might still like more than 4. But in terms of, like, Final Fantasy, the series of games that tell, like, neat stories with fantasy trappings in them, this is where you start. Like, you
Yeah.
really don't need to mess with those first 3 games at all. If you
Yeah.
like this, then I'd encourage you to maybe go back and play 1. But this
Sure.
is probably where
I
you should
agree.
go first.
All right. So that's part 1. We'll finish the
Mhm.
game
Hurts me to
for
say
part
it a
2.
little bit.
Thank you, ZP.
Hey, Gino, Jeff, have you ever had
Nope.
to like
Nope.
take a
Hey.
shit so bad that you had to get naked because you know something bad's gonna happen, and you start praying, and
Nope.
you generally
Hey,
think you're
Jeff.
gonna die,
That was.
and you think it's over, and
Hey,
you stand
Jeff.
up, and you put your hand on the doorknob, and you realize
Hey,
you got to go
Jeff.
back
How?
down
Thank you,
because round
Jeff.
2's coming up.
Yeah. Hey,
Thank you.
I'm happy to be here. Hope you're both
I-
having a good time and not
Thank you,
shitting while
listeners.
naked.
Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and Deep Listens Podcast at gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Help. Till next time. Peace. You had to do it, huh?